Hi, my name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is you, helping you as a non-traditional entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a side hustler, someone who is coming from left field and doing things differently because your life is different than the so-called traditional entrepreneur. I'm here to help you on your journey. Today we're talking about a quote that I absolutely love. It's, "You're always one decision away from a totally different life." You're always one decision away from a totally different life. I want to thank Newbie Twiglet for that. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's NUBBYTWIGLET. That's over on Instagram. You can do that. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Brown Damon, and you can see the quote in its glory. Of course, you can see it in the image, in the thumbnail. I love this quote for so many different reasons, and it comes down to three different things. Number one, there's the risk. So when it comes to taking a risk, you have opportunities. And one of my mentors says the opportunities don't end, but they do have a shelf life. In other words, if you are feeling called to write a song or to ask someone out or to write a book or whatever you consider to be your particular thing, there's a shelf life to that. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that brilliantly in one of my favorite books called Big Magic. I quote it a couple times in my new book, Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World, as well as in some of my previous books. But she talks about there being a certain amount of time to do something. For instance, when it came to my own life, I became an entrepreneur at the exact same time that my first son was born. First kid was born, actually. So first kid, first son, same thing. And it was not the best time to become an entrepreneur, but it was time. And so I ended up doing a small startup called So Quotable, launched the app, did the whole thing myself while taking care of, I'm doing the motion, my, at the time, 4-month-old baby. And then it got popular enough for me to get on the TED stage. Getting on the TED stage led to me doing a second app called Cuddler, which I also bootstrapped with two other folks. It became one of the most popular apps in 2014. You can Google it. It was a crazy period of time. And a year later, we ended up having the app acquired and made some money on it. And that led me to doing my first major business book, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur. And then ultimately that became a bestseller. And then me ultimately getting here with you. But that required that one decision to say, this is not the best time to become an entrepreneur, but this feels like the time to do it. So number one, you have the risk. But that leads to the second thing is number two, the change. So that decision means that you're going to have to change something. And often the decision isn't sticking with something, which we'll get into with number three, but also it more has to do with us deciding to go for something, us to stretch, us to go a little bit longer to reach that particular goal. That means something when you make that decision. I can't speak for you. I know for me, when I make that decision and say, all right, I'm going to stick with it until this particular thing happened. I talk about it in Build From Now when it comes to Stephen Covey's excellent analogy with the big rocks and the little rocks, where you have big rocks in your life and little rocks in your life. They all fit in a jar. If you try to put all the little rocks in there first, and you try to put the big rocks in, they won't fit. But if you put the big rock in there first and then put the little rocks in there, little rocks will automatically fill in the gaps all around and everything will fit. Those big rocks, of course, are your big priorities. You making that decision, whatever that decision is, that puts those rocks in place. And you don't want to be in the paralysis of analysis. And as my father used to say, not making a decision is a decision. So if you know that you need to change and you're not making that decision, which is what I'm getting at, then that is a decision. And there's an opportunity, back to the risk part, there's an opportunity that you're going to miss. So number one, always one decision away. You're taking the risk, understanding that there's the change and accepting it. And number three, embracing that failure, the idea of sunk costs, and knowing that if you make this decision and you go forward, what will you actually learn from it? What will you learn from it? Not what will you get from it. What will you learn from it? I've done 25 books. Built From Now. Check out DamonBrown.net and you can learn more about Built From Now. Pre-order it now for January 28th, 2021. You get a special gift. Really special gift. But come over to DamonBrown.net and check it out. You'll know what's going on. It's my 25th book. And I've had a handful of bestsellers. I think 3 at this point. I've had some that did fine. And I've had some that I've literally sold, like, I can count them on one hand, a couple hands, maybe my toes. Some that are, as they say, abject failures. But the intention was to serve you with the best writing possible and the best, particularly in my journalism days, the best information possible. That's it. So if it becomes a bestseller and, sells buku copies, as has happened to me a few times, I've been very fortunate, or it bombs, of course my ego feels a way about it. But I still made the decision to create. And that's what I mean by decision to accept failure. Build From Now, again, it could bomb. Or it could become another bestseller. I could be, depending on how travel goes in the future, I could be talking about Build From Now at sold out stages, hopefully all around the world in the upcoming years. Or nobody could care about it. And only a few people will be into it. But I don't know. But making that decision to create the book comes from me being okay with that potential so-called failure. If I was worried about how it could be perceived or worried about failure, I wouldn't pick up a pen. I wouldn't open the laptop, etc., etc. This book would absolutely never get done this year. There's already enough stuff going on as I speak. Can you imagine if I had that specter of failure there? So the book could technically fail as far as metrics. But accepting that from the outset allows me to accept my decision and say, my main intention is to serve you, not to have a bestseller. That's how I got my previous bestsellers. I didn't write them down and say, I'm going to have a bestseller. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do your vision boards, cool. For me, it's to serve. And if it serves in the right way, and it happens to be that right wave at the right time, as I experienced with my startup Cuddler, which had 250,000 users and it got sold within a year, or as I experienced with, the Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, which became a bestseller with the big guys and gals that I've looked up to for years, to suddenly have a book in their top 10. Or if it ends up just making a little wave, as some of my books have done in the past, and then end up picking up a small dedicated audience later. They both are fine. They're both okay. And even if it is a so-called failure, which I would consider some of my books to be a failure, what did I actually learn from it? And so, as I talk about in my one-on-one coaching sessions, changing the metrics changes the experience, changes the outcome. And you want to focus on metrics that you can actually control. And talk about this much more in Build From Now, the upcoming book. Anyway, remember, you're always one decision away from a totally different life. Again, thanks again to Newbie Twiglet over on Instagram for sharing this gem and for sharing your wisdom with us. And remember, I have to remember, if you want more resources and more insight as far as how you can maximize what you're doing right now and build from now, come take my quiz. It's at buildfromnowquiz.com. Again, buildfromnowquiz.com. 3, max 4 questions. It's free, multiple choice. It'll take you literally 2 minutes. Hundreds of people have taken it now. And so I know the routine. It'll be really smooth for you too. And you can learn your best resources and also learn more insights about the upcoming book. Again, I have a special pre-order going. If you're watching this before January 28th, 2021, come through to DamonBrown.net, order it directly from me, not from the other platforms. You can, but if you want the special stuff, come to me. I can get you a signed copy. You can get one of the special box sets that includes The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, the new Build From Now, and Bring Your Worth. All of them included. We also have the special swag, including the t-shirt that I have, which has the symbols from, wrong side, there it is, symbols from Build From Now. Come through, but if you pre-order any of those versions of Build From Now right now, before January 28th, 2021, as part of the pre-order, you will be able to download a free copy of the original best-selling book, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur's audiobook. As soon as you buy it, you'll get a link. You can download the whole thing. Again, it's a bestseller. It was on Amazon for a bit. So you can get it for free. I want to give this as a token of my gratitude for helping me on the journey all along and allowing me to be on your own personal journey. But in the meantime, come over to buildfromnowquiz.com and remember to always bring your worth and to always build from now. Thanks and be well.